Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. You can start.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It is my pleasure to introduce him, sir, ma'am, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, ma'am. Welcome, Kedarnath, sir. I am Saurabh Birole from SIRT College, Bhopal, the SAGE Group, as of now, very famous now from the Central India. And Mr. Kedarnath Rao Urpade is an urban planning professional qualified in Masters in Urban and Regional Planning from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He is also Dutch alumni, having qualified in as a graduation in construction, building and housing from Institute of Housing and Urban Development Studies, Rotterdam. He is a consultant responsible for urban planning, municipal infrastructure planning, development and financing, and environment and social impact assessment. He has vast experience in infrastructure project development and structural, institutional development, municipal finance, project coordination and convergence, and land use, and social expert in government, private and joint ventures project in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. With nearly 40 years of experience in World Bank, Asian Development Bank, UNESCO, Government of India and Government of Maharashtra, and privately funded projects, conceptualization, development and coordination, and approval of diverse urban sectors, including affordable housing, slum settlement, and rehabilitation, transport, water, large cross-district highway projects, and port projects. Heritage management and environmental conservation valued nearly about 5,000 crores. Kedarnath sir is recognized as an urban specialist, having worked for Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority for nearly 25 years, engaged in financing and coordinating infrastructure projects for 7 municipal corporations and 13 municipal councils. Thank you so much, sir, for that. And nearly 1,000 village settlements and nearly 15 years of private sector and consultancies experience in SACE, smart cities, water sensitive capital cities and ports, EIA and SIA for large infrastructure projects. Kedarnath sir has held various senior positions in the past. He is the former chief planner, Mumbai Metropolitan Region Development Authority, president in the Reliance Industries Supported Sales in MMR, business head and senior vice president, Privilege High Tech Infrastructure Private Limited. He is currently the CEO, Kesari Infrabuild Private Limited, and environment consultancy firm. Kedarnath has published numerous articles in national and international journals, has contributed articles for edited books. He is a regular speaker at national and international conferences. He was the panel discussant in Convention of Parties 14 organized by the United Nations, and recently at the celebration of 75 years of United Nations UN 75 initiative organized by Confederation of Young Leader. For thank you so much. I will welcome you, sir, on behalf of this amazing conference. I will invite you, sir, and please enlighten us with your wisdom. Thank you, sir.
Sir, you have to share the content from your side. The PPT. Please unmute him, Darpanji. Sir को unmute करिए.
I have unmuted him, sir.
Yes, got it. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a few minutes back, I was understanding what is sustainability because suddenly the power went off. So I was wondering how do I take it further. So then I went out to the backup systems. And I started looking for battery backup, inverter, all these things. And then it was instead of a forward line, I was going at the backward linkage. So that was a very good experience. And then the other part of the story is I would be muting myself in between because I have my doggy here. So if he starts barking, I'll have to keep myself from you or would be a partner to the barking. So that's how it is. And once again, good afternoon, everybody. And at the outset, I'm thankful to Dr. Betty Dasgupta ma'am and also my friend Sai Ganesh, who introduced me to this August forum. It was good, and I have, I would say, the Indian Institute of Carpet Technology is doing amazing work, whatever little understanding I could come about. And on this background, I welcome all the engineers once again for the sustainable engineering and green chemistry. So what I would do is I will speak on sustainability and I will speak on green. I will leave the engineering and chemistry to you. So I think that is what my intention is, and I shall share my PPT.
Sir, put it in the slide, show mode.
Yeah. So I shall speak on sustainability and sustainable and green chemistry. On green chemistry and engineering is your domain, so you can work on it. And initially, about for 10 minutes, I want it a little interactive. I may ask for unmuting all of them and use the chat box as much as possible because I will take the chat communication and I shall have a look at who is responding to what kind of a query. So be prepared with your fastest finger, and that's my request. And this is the topic Green Building Initiative for Sustainable Development. And I acknowledge I have taken information, pictures, references from the website. I may not be able to acknowledge about hundreds of them together, but I have given a blanket kind of statement that I have taken information, pictures, references from the website. So it's an acknowledgement to everybody.
Sir,
Many
can you
of you know
speak a
what
little
is this.
more loudly? People are not being able to hear. Some people are writing in the chat box that it's a feeble audio. So can you be a little more louder? Yes, sir, now you speak. Yeah, right now it is okay because
now,
of
now
your
it's better.
speaker.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. What I'm looking for, how many of you can identify this particular picture? And if so, put it in the chat box. I give over 15 seconds for it. Okay. For all of us, this is a carpet from Bhadohi, and Bhadohi is known as the carpet capital of South Asia. So it's a very, very big kind of a credit. And when I looked at it as an urban planner, having worked some part earlier on Mirzapur, I started looking at Bhadohi, though I had never heard the word, the city. So I started doing some study on Bhadohi. And what really amazed to me is the carpet industry, and it's the capital of carpet in South Asia. What I found next as a planner is these two pictures also belong to Bhadohi. And I started doing some R&D on various reports by the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, the local public, the local area, the media. So I found that along with the carpet, Bhadohi also is highly polluted. Air pollution, water pollution, and a lot of solid waste into the water bodies, which is basically garments and textiles and other plastics and other things. So next, I just want you to put it on the chat box whether this is sustainability. Could be yes, no, maybe. Some of you may say this is sustainable, others may say this is not sustainable. Whatever it is. Is this sustainable is the question. Yes, no, you may have to write. Interesting. somebody also is saying, yes, it's hysterical. The PPT is frozen. Ah. Then whether this is unsustainability. Is this sustainability? The second question is whether this is unsustainability. So you may also respond to this by yes and no. Good. Thank you. So Bhadohi, with this kind of a credibility of being Southeast Asia's capital carpet, and then on this kind of a pollution, we need to really start looking at the sustainable engineering and green chemistry so that Bhadohi becomes sustainable and it has whatever the best of the products available. What is sustainability? Is means that things keep going and can sustain themselves, continue into the future and go on forever. Something like perpetuity. If there is the cycle is disturbed, if the networks are disturbed, what seems to be in case of Bhadohi, I am using Bhadohi just as an example, no offense intended, but this is for all of us to understand how we can take it further. So it's very simple that whatever goes on forever is sustainability. And the human dimension, the human perspective is that if we have to ensure that it is done and the nature is designed to provide us fresh air, clean water, produce power, food, and allow us to have a high quality of life for others. So this is what sustainability is. It is like simple, you may put your hand across and try to keep it for long. Maximum 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. After that, your hand comes down. So that means it is becoming unsustainable. To sustain that particular kind of an energy resource, what you are looking at. And this is where unsustainability is, means that it cannot. And that is where we are called today. Most of you may agree. Some of you may still say, no, we don't agree. We are doing it in a very good way. So then why sustainability? So sustainability needs more deeper understanding just by the word, I would say the dictionary meaning or beyond that. But it is something which we will have to look at, that whether the current kind of the situation in the world and the environment, there is a major concern on sustainability. And what made, I would look forward, so the first trigger which people started thinking about sustainability as an important aspect in the entire developmental cycle and in the world. If anybody knows, please put that also, that according to me, this is the trigger of sustainability. We can write. We write the names and we may refer to an institution or refer to a person just for your convenience. How many of you heard this Silent Spring and Rachel Carson? Rachel Carson could be your neighbor, or Silent Spring could be when somebody comes at home and you keep quiet and your wife is around or your husband is around or children around, you will become silent. It's something like that. It's not so. This was a book published way back in 1962 when the chemical industry was questioned and the DDT was actually killing those sparrows during the spring. So Rachel Welch, who was a well-known botanist and naturalist, she wrote this book saying that we need to relook at the process and the developmental trend which we are following by using DDT. DDT has got negative impacts on the entire agriculture and horticulture sector. India too had to go through this, and finally we were able to ban DDT. But the point which is coming in here is the relationship between the chemistry and the nature. So one man's food is another man's poison. So what really happened is those areas where Rachel was staying, she found that the spring was becoming silent year on year. So it was a major concern that we need to relook. And now coming back just to give you on sustainability, how it started, and as a faculty development program for you people, faculty itself, teachers are gurus. They are well read, they are well versed with what is happening around. And what I'm looking for is what is that we are finally looking at? Is you are the leaders of transformation. We expect a lot. Everybody expects a lot from the teachers. The parents, the school, the citizens, the society. Teacher, yes. अध्यापक है बहुत अच्छी बात है. Now, that's what our understanding is. So what are we looking at is, like based on the feedbacks which you gave, some said, I don't know. And some said, I do. And yes and no. So what I'm looking for is, I don't know is a much comfortable situation because learning process will be faster. When you say, I know, your learning process is truncated because you are operating from your thinking rather from the listening. So what I'm looking for is, these are the two status or states of mind which we need to look at. I don't know and I know. I know, I will say, is very dangerous. But there is something beyond. Now, this is 5% of the human beings. The remaining is, I don't know, I don't know. I'm not even present what is happening around. I'm absolutely oblivious. I have no idea, no clue about what is happening. And moment you get into this domain, I would say the learning process, the transformation process is much faster and much, I would say, structured and much open. So what I'm looking for, how to bring out the best in yourself and others. We are doing this program for the future. And what I'm looking for is, how do you transform yourself and how do you transform others? When I say others, it could be the teachers, it could be the students, it could be the family members, it could be a larger community, or some of you may just take up a particular kind of line of action and become Rachel Welch and say, Rachel Carlson, and say, look, I am going and transforming this world. So that's one area which I am open to and I am keen in knowing more about. And now a bit of a history, because we have been using the word sustainable. I have been hearing this word for the last about 25 years. People come and say, Kedarji, sustainability pe kaam karo? Haan ji. But what is this sustainability and how did it start? One point, of course, all of you know, is Rachel Carlson. What were the other steps and processes? The entire story was started by an individual and how it grew over a period of time. In 1962, it was one chemical industry and one agriculture and horticulture being talked about. 1968, Garrett Hardin wrote Tragedy of the Commons. This was common means whatever is common asset, that is where it is being focused on. And this is the story of UK, and where it says that the common resources like the grasslands, because of the need for milk, for cattle, meat, all this was being increased, and the limited common grazing grounds were shrinking or were being impacted, which means it would have a larger impact on the environment and the ecosystem and the biodiversity. So he wrote about this, that there is a tragedy of the commons. So these are common assets which is impacted. Then came in 1972, Edward Goldsmith and Robert Allen wrote about the blueprint for survival. You need the title is very critical that it is the survival which is being talked about in 1972. And this was covered, and then they said, look, if we continue with the current developmental model, the environment will not be able to sustain. And the same year, the United Nations Environment Program was also started. And in 1972, further what really happened, the book written, The Limits to Growth. It's a very interesting, all of these documents are very interesting. If anybody is interested in pursuing the field of sustainability and green architecture, green building, and looking at a larger thing, I think these books are very, very important and we need to have a look at it. This was written by the Club of Rome, and where a lot of computer modeling was done, that whether the current trend of development can be sustained the way it is going on. So therefore, it was a proposition that we need to limit the growth of the world. And then came in 1987-88 a very interesting kind of a conference and a meeting, Our Common Future. I think this is a kind of a shift in the entire area and entire development. It was talking about at the world level, the common future. So this was what I would say the trigger and the point where we started looking at sustainable development in terms of how we will be able to take it forward. How many of you have read this and known this lady, Gro Harlan Burton? This is a book, The Common Future, and subsequently a lot of articles and a lot of committees and a lot of commissions were established based on this document and this lady's statement. And we are today also following that sustainable development means development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs. So this is what is critical, is sustainability, what we started off with future, present versus the future, present versus the future. And that's what I think sustainable development is all about, whether we can continue to do that. This quotation, I always have said that if you're talking about sustainable development, please read this and understand what these documents have been talking about. Then, of course, a very interesting process has started. An individual, then a group of people, then a commission, and then finally what they talked about, the world came together and said in 1992 in Rio, the Earth Summit, or what we call as the Rio Earth Summit of 1990. This was a major shift in the thinking and the ideologies and the processes across the globe. And people started looking at that if the current trends, it was more structured, more detailed. A lot of people came about and started sharing that if the current trends are there, probably the future is bleak. Not being pessimistic, but this is what the report has been saying. Then this was translated in 2000 by the UN into Millennium Development Goals, and we had 8 Millennium Development Goals. I shall discuss this subsequently. So there was a individual movement started, and now we are in the process of institutionalizing the sustainability. Okay. Then in Johannesburg, we formed the second commit after 20 years of 1992. And here NGOs and other people, interested parties were also involved. Very, very inclusive kind of a opinion format which was followed. And it hinged upon 3 things: people, planet, and prosperity. I think if all 3 of them are retained and sustained, probably sustainability could be one part of the story. Then 10 years later, we had the United Nations Conference of Sustainable Development. So this is, I would say, the starting of the concept of sustainability and sustainable development coming in all walks of life, all industries, all economic activities, all social issues, all environmental issues, that anything we are talking about. This is a major conference, a very interesting document. I think we all need to. And in 2015 and earlier on, there was a review which was being taken on the Millennium Development Goals, whether this is what we are looking for. So we came out with 17 goals, which was very, very interesting and inclusive. And I shall share that. And this is where our future actually starts, and start understanding where we are and what are we planning. So it is the urbanized world which we are talking about. And this urbanization has been starting from 3% in 1800 to 45% in 2000 and 70% in 2050. And there is a small area which says that 50% of which has to be built. What should be the built form of this? Whether it is green, brown, blue, yellow, black, I won't know. But it says that 50% of which needs to be built. So this is the area where we are actually looking at from emerging from sustainability, that we will be getting into this kind of a domain in future. And there's a very interesting thing about the pattern of urbanization. I would say during 1950, 70% was rural. And the projections showed earlier, and here also, we are looking for 30% as rural in 2050, which has major implications on the agriculture, on the production systems, and all other areas, whatever we are talking about. So you will find that this trend, which is going, and then place it 1962, we are talking about DDT. 1972, we are talking about environment and our together. Then subsequently, the concern for world. So the trajectory, which is going like this, has been a major concern, and that is how environment, sustainability, and development became areas of interest and focus amongst professionals, academicians, researchers, policymakers, politicians, and everyone. What has it led to? It has led to increased demand for energy, water, and natural resources. What has it done? It has impacted the ecosystem, increased the greenhouse gases, and also impacted the other parts of our system. And that is where we are more and more vulnerable. In stuck. Ah, this is a major kind of an, I would say, a concept or an idea or a concern is development is bound to have environmental degradation. So we are in the current stage of 2020, somewhere at this point, where more than 50% or around 50% of the population is rural. So development demands are there. And the 50% new construction, which is still to be done by 2017, I think that is 2050 is really the concern, and that is why we are talking about sustainability, green buildings, looking at natural resources, energy, water, greenhouse gases, ecosystems, all that put together, we are worried because if any one of them gets, it's already disturbed, which you all mentioned earlier, that it is unsustainable. Now, the need of development says overexploitation of natural resources. There are climate change issues, then scarcity of resources. All these are gigantic domains by itself. We are not focusing on for the current session. We will move on. And this is where the detailed Sustainable Development Goals 2030, which I would like to share. The first lot is, is those areas which was not covered earlier. And then we came about with new economic kind of sustainable development parameters. And very interestingly, it is talking about industry, innovation, infrastructure, and sustainable cities and communities. We may have to focus on this. And also the consumption patterns. And then we came on the environment part of it, which we have been dealing. And then it says that all this is possible if we have good governance and means of implementation and coordination through the partnership. So this per se is the agenda which we need to have to follow in the future also. Why? Because this is the roadmap of global sustainability. There are 17 goals, 169 targets. There are more than 300 indicators, out of which 229 has been identified, and green buildings is also part of that kind of identification. So this is what I would say is our understanding on sustainable development, and green buildings become more and more critical and crucial. That how do we take this further? So what we are looking for is, if we have to be responsible, if we have to be kind of taking all this further, the issues which we discussed earlier is the triangle of economics, environment, and social. We need to take care of it, and sustainability lies somewhere. Now, are we geared to take the sustainability agenda further? So, sustainability per se is not independent. It is geared to environment. It is geared to future. It is about nature, and finally responsibility. And I find it very interesting is responsibility and sustainability are linked. And responsibility by who? You and we. If we are responsible, probably sustainability angle will be more into the kind of focus area, and we will be able to regulate, control, and manage things much more properly. So therefore, we need to understand, in addition to what we were talking about, the technical part of the sustainable development, the institutional and the individual responsibility becomes more and more important to ensure that sustainability is taken care properly. And I am sticking to the definition of sustainability as announced in the common future, and I'm not deviating much from it. There are kind of new concepts coming in, new addition, new subtraction, but to start and for our own understanding, I would call it an abacada, ABCD, and let us learn that first, and then we will get into the larger and bigger objects of life. And now coming back to why we need to focus on the faculty development program. I found studies across the globe. This is all available on the net. I can share the references if anybody wants to know more about it. That studies found that the curriculum sharply cuts across sustainable development. Very interesting. People don't know, it's a concept, and it's understood that it was in 1988, it was fine. But it is devoid of fundamental elements of sustainable development. That is those 17 goals, the 269 points. And what we need to look at is, if we start looking at it, it needs the gear. All of them need to be coordinated, integrated, it needs to be converged, whether and if we want to do it. Else, please remember the carpet picture. The Asian capital, and on the other hand, the local population is having a different kind of impression about the place. And professional practice seems to be missing. There may be a lot of theory work done, a lot of research and academics, but how do we implement it? How do we take it further? That part probably seems to be missing. These are studies. I can share all that document, or if anybody wants to get in touch one-to-one, I can share that part. What did the studies recommend? That the related education curriculum need to incorporate GB tracing and its practicality. That is green building and sustainable development. Tracing is what we did. We went to 1962 to understand what is sustainable development. And probably you will agree that the first slide and subsequently your understanding or your kind of vision of sustainable development and green buildings probably has changed. We will come back to the detailing of green building also because it's also very simple as what sustainable development is. And it's practical. You may propose something, हम ये करेंगे, we will do this, we will, a lot of ideas are there. But when it comes to the practicality of it, you find that 5-10% of it is actually practical. Like for instance, one may say, let us stop the carpet industry, or let us look at the environmental conservation. I don't think that is really practical. We need to find out a via media. We need to find a kind of a laissez-faire policy or a practical solution that it does not impact the environment, it does not impact the environment, but at the same cost, people are able to get fresh water, fresh air, unpolluted and sustainable livelihoods. Now that's what becomes very, very important. Then the next step comes about facilitate the smooth transition of teachers and students into environmentally responsible professionals. When I say before professionals as individuals, as human beings, are we ready to kind of transform ourselves? Simply think, are we willing to stop the single-use plastics, or if we are willing to ensure that we are adopting responsible lives in kind of not using non-chemical toiletries in the bathroom. No, very simple. There are groups which are doing a lot of this work, which is purely natural kind of a system which is there. Then ensure that sustainability of the built environment. Any house, any person builds, you will find the first thing is he wants the maximum lights, that maximum shore sharaba, music and everything, with all that. Whether that energy consumption is required. Yes, we say that it is for happiness and it's an inspiration. Why should we stop anybody from doing it? But that means you are consuming more and more non-renewable energies. Because you don't have renewable and at that scale. Then what is the way out? Students need to be trained on how to design, how to come forward with green and sustainable practices and projects, methods. If we are able to understand ourselves, probably we will be very good that learning processes are different. How many of us are getting engaged in social causes of environmental protection or biodiversity? 2 days later, we have the World Environment. What is your commitment to ensure that you are doing something by which you become a responsible human being, a responsible citizen, a responsible teacher, a responsible student? What is that you are planning to say? Are you willing to say that, oh, I will stop doing these things, or I will plant 10 trees, or I will ensure that people, I will go for a watershed management program? I don't know what we are looking for. I will clean Bhadohi completely. We will all form a group of people and clear all the muck which is lying around in the water bodies. It all depends. So there is a training which needs to be done, and we take it forward. And it's an industry. Sustainable development and green building is an industry. And how do we ensure that professionals are able to get back to the triangle of economics, social, and environment? So we can't say that this is a project which we start doing and impacting the business of any person. It doesn't work. It's all a business and larger business. I come back. There are further slides which is talking about what are the ways and what are the technologies and what are the kind of instruments by which we can do it. So technology up to date and meet the needs of sustainability. It's not only technology, but also its use of it, its practicality of it. Not necessarily that I will use all 5-star gadgets and still consume so much of energy that it reaches without unstart kind of a technology. But we need to find out, and we find new. There is IT technology which is available to monitor, and that's where the green buildings are. So how do we ensure that we take this forward and further? So this is all about how. And green building as well as sustainable development as a pedagogy, as a practice and teaching. How do we ensure and we blend both of them in a way that we are able to take and teach the practice and teach the theory in such a way that research projects or the studies which come about are able to produce better results for sustainable development or systems or technologies, processes. So that's what I'm looking. What really it comes about is that yes, skills and knowledge to improve the quality of life and quality of built environment and sustainable development and green building within the sustainable development concept. And how well can professionals, academicians, and researchers come together and say, look, we will put our hands together, we will block and squeeze to the jigsaw puzzle, and the jigsaw puzzle will be complete, and we will have a proper kind of life for the future. It all depends on how do we do it. I mean, there is an institutional process. Like I understand the FDP, the IGBC is also involved in supporting this kind of a cause. So I think these kind of initiatives, but converted into some kind of tangible growth. That is where I think we will be able to achieve and move further in this larger domain of sustainable development. And we are doing with NGOs, we are doing with academic institutions, and like for instance, I always say that if you're going for a tree plantation, are we able to tie up with the botany students from the masters and say researcher so that they monitor that space after 5 years? We have done a lot of tree plantation in Bhadohi, but what after 5 years? Who is monitoring it? Is there a practical study to say that this has been the oxygen absorption, or this has been the survival, this has been the biodiversity, this is what the ecosystem has changed? It becomes one kind of an incident, and there is a kind of a media coverage of it. We need to be kind of go in an integrative manner by which we say that all of us to come together and we are able to manage and produce a better development. And this is again another couple of other studies which I found out that what is that skill which is required for green building and sustainable development. 6 skill areas have been identified. What could be the 6th one? You can type. I've written 5 here. Hopefully you have observed. And I'm saying there are 6 skill sets. What could be the 6th? Just think, read. I'm talking about processes and principles. It's very, very necessary. I'm talking about technology and its practical applications. I'm talking about environmental, social, and economic concerns. So these 3 will be there in any sustainable development approach: economic, social, and environmental concerns. What could be the 6th? No Googling, please. No Googling. No Googling. Are you writing, typing, chatting? Okay. This is very simple. No? General knowledge. And this is from studies. I'm not saying anything big, but I'm saying this is all professors, academicians, researchers, professionals like us have come together and found that during this skill development, which is on priority, the first one is general knowledge. And along with general knowledge, the associated is a very, very uncommon thing which is not available is common sense. And our understanding of beyond out of box thinking. So if we start doing these kind of things, the required skills for green building and sustainable development is possible. How, what, I can still share. We need a different, I think, continuous program for this to how to do it. But I think these are the 6 basic principles, and you can pick and integrate all of them and say that this is what we do. How do we do it? We need to package them. It can't be done individually. You need to package them. And once you package them beautifully and ensure that people are able to enjoy, get satisfied in doing that. It's a very, very simple kind of a technology, nothing much required. We sometimes lack packaging. And why we don't package? This is not my area. Very simple statement which I've heard. The MEP consultant will do this, the HAV consultant, HAVC consultant will do this, the architect will do this, the liaison person will do this, but who will actually consolidate together, which is a major grouse among technocrats, professionals like us, is why do the general administration, the bureaucrats, generalists come about and package it? Because we are not in a position to package it. We don't want to package it because we have a domain specialization and over specialization, and we will be operating from a domain which hurts others, and maybe what we in other words we call as ego domains, and ego domains is dangerous and which stops the common sense to come about properly and do it. Just to recapitulate all in one go for you, that we need the principles of development in create, and these are the 6 basic things you need to know, that why we need this, and that is how we can go for sustainable development. I have seen many cases of green buildings coming to me, and finally what you find is, why did you do this? Oh, I forgot that I should do this. I'm a water expert. I'm a rainwater harvesting expert. I'm a solar expert. I am all kinds of expert and specialist. But when you say, yaar, isko zara package karke, so finally it's that architect and engineer who is a non-specialist, but with common sense, with general knowledge, and a proper understanding of all the subjects is the one who rules the rest. So are we cleared for this kind of a thing? Are we willing to kind of put our specialization domains in such a way that we are packaging it properly with everybody together? Like what I had shared earlier. In this one, if dhania says, without me, the taste will not be there, or the puri says, without me, you can't eat the bhed, or the onion says that you will not get the tangy taste, or the chili which says, no, without me, you can't do this, it doesn't operate. So the packaging and the paper finally says, if you don't have the paper together, you can't actually serve people. So we have to be very clear that these 6 domains packaged and delivered, so you get a product called green building and sustainable development. This is a sort of a repeat, but just for emphasizing the point is climate change and its disaster consequences. I'm not getting into that part of the story because we are focusing little on this side, industrialization and other environment unfriendly issues. It could be simple as that the exhaust from the vehicle, or not using the kitchen waste, or not using the wastewater originating from the home, the industry, or any other place, we are not able to. Because when you look at all put together, what we have a concept probably, which is again a different domain, is what we are looking at, the circular economy. Everybody has been talking now about circular economy, we are talking about resilient systems, and we are talking about and green networks, and that's what we are looking at. So there is a shift which is happening, is that from sustainable development we are going into different domains and new domains. Probably that will be the future for all of it. So while we are looking at whatever I have taught, it's one part about whatever shared is one part, but future is going to be much more complex and much more interesting. And now I'm linking it to shifting gears from sustainable development to green buildings. The World Green Building Council in 2017 said sustainable development and green buildings are interlinked, which we of course have shared and what we have done with this so far. And I would look at this entire concept which is going is that it has to be hand in glove. It has to be a collective. And that's one of the objects, or that is one kind of a string which you will find in my conversation today, is all I'm requesting is to integrate to converge, to coordinate, work together. No, then probably we will be able to do it. And this is a very powerful statement saying that they are interwoven, which of course we all also realize, but we need to use it. We need to get into the system and say, look, okay, let's go ahead and do it. Then the interesting part is it is talking about global environment. It's talking about that one cannot be done without the other. And meeting the growing needs, it's very important. Go back to the trends or urbanization pattern. If 30% of agriculture is available and 70% is going to be urban or rural 30-70 ratio, then where are we heading? Are we able to, again, we go to technology, we will go for hybrids, or whatever we are looking for. So what really happens is it has its own ramifications. So are we geared for those ramifications and ensure that it's a all-inclusive proposal? So what are the ways is the new path which is coming is through application interconnected in such a way that convergence of resources is very important. Not that it is I know water, you know wastewater, you know solar, you know energy. It can't really. It has to be one integrated. And today, in the green building industry, it is the IT industry which is regulating this entire business in such a way that we are putting things together and we want to take it ahead. So that's what is a very, very interesting area which we need to have a look at it. Is unless you coordinate, unless you converge, unless you internet, probably we will be doing, because what it says that both cannot be obtained by pursuing one without the other. So this is a very simple, commonsensical kind of a story. And on this background, what it really come about is that it is established that sustainable development and green buildings are interlinked. So what are we looking for? We are looking for a new trend that is innovative technological field of built environment. Of course, 50 years or 17 years back and maybe 50 years back, sure, in small towns until about 30, 20 years back also, we used to call a Padia. So Padia used to come with one draftsman. These are talking about small towns in UP, small towns in Andhra, small towns in Tamil Nadu, or some small towns in MP, or even Rajasthan. What you really do is he comes about, he designs the house, he uses the local material, and he knows everything about what is required. Somebody will say AC lagwana hai, to theek hai saab, ye AC lagwa denge. So what we are looking for is was still a kind of a thing where skill sets which were local, skill sets which was proven, skill sets which has been going on for ages. That is what was done, because what we did is it was climate oriented, climate design oriented houses. In Rajasthan, what is there, not necessarily in Jammu or Kashmir, or what is there in Assam or Northeast, not necessarily in Maharashtra. So we need to understand what we are looking for. Now we have come about with green buildings and saying that we need to reduce the impact on climate change and conserve natural resources to design, construction, operation, maintenance, and demolition. I shall take some time on the demolition. Is when old buildings are demolished, we used to earlier dump it. Today there are laws which says that the demolition should be carried out in a structured manner and also deposited in identified municipal demolition waste demolished. So what we are looking for is we have started structuring, identifying newer thoughts as based on our education, based on our experience, based on what is happening elsewhere. So we have been looking at that as an area, and that is how we are looking. Maintenance was never part earlier considered. Whatever thing. But today it is part of an entire thing. And operations is same. Building resources are created in such a way the builder comes about and takes a certain money from you, or government pays a certain money from you for operation and maintenance of that asset. So all this is part of a new kind of a regime, because people's behavior, human behavior is unique and quite different and unstructured many times. I'll just stick to one thing that the conceptuality to reality of construction and operation is a kind of a life cycle analysis, LCA model. Earlier it was not so, but when you come to green buildings, the rating systems, you will find that this becomes more and more necessary for people and understand. So this is what it is there. And once again, what I found in the literature survey and my own experiences, integrated approach has led to what we are calling as life cycle impacts. So first we said coordination, everything, then we said convergence, and then we are shifting. You will find the trend in the building industry is shifting from one end to the other, and it is talking about now life cycle analysis or what we call as a circular economy in a different context. But everybody is now saying that if you are taking something, we need to consume it and we need to reuse it or whatever the model. So it's more to do with life cycle impacts of resources. So that's a new kind of a trend in the construction industry and all other parts of the system. And these are the typical kind of various kind of green building models are there. These are some 4, some say 6, some come to 9. So what bottom line is these 4 somehow I found was important to reduce energy consumption, conserve environment, building material and economic resources, and social equity. Because buildings, say in Mumbai, we call slum development authorities and the gated community. So we need to look at that as a kind of thing. So that means we are looking for a social cohesion, inclusive planning. So all this we want to derive through this sustainable and green building concept. And who are the stakeholders? Is the developer, designer, investor, and building. So all need to contribute towards this. Earlier, the developer came, bought some land about 50 kilometers away from a city and developed it, and all of us kind of hustled. And we find that in all over the country. We have this frog leaping concept. We have a settlement, and then you, like a frog, you leap. In between, you leave the place, and then you go into a rural area because the land is cheap. We are able to get the permissions, and that's how we are doing. But what we are talking about in this green building is accessibility, where you are locating, where siting becomes very important, design becomes very important. So in that background, I'll again, I would like to come out and share with you what is a green building as defined by the US Office of Federal Environmental Schedule. They seem to have done a lot of work, and from there the USGCBC and every IC, all kinds of thoughts have been coming through this. The practice of increasing the efficiency with which buildings and their sites use energy, water, and materials, reducing building impacts of human.
അങ്ങനെ കൊണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സി വിയിൽ മൊത്തം ഫുള്ള് വൈറസ് കയറി സാധനം ശരിയാവും സംഭവം. അത് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞേക്കാം.
যা কিছু একটা পার্সেন্টেজ হবে, যে পার্সেন্টেজটা হবে সেই পার্সেন্টেজ ইজ কল্ড carefully measure.
Sarpanji, unmute everyone.
মনে করেন একটা 2 ইঞ্চ আছে, another amount and given it blow আবার 3 percentage deformation in the length is possibility.
Please mute everyone.
Can we take a break? 2 minutes or a 5-minute break? Is that okay? Hello?
Yes, sir, if you want to take a 5 minutes break, you can take it.
Because what I thought is now the topic is changing from sustainability to green building. So let us take a break here. Let people kind of think and we come back.
Okay, sir, you can break. We are here only because.
Okay.
Our
Then I continue. No issues on that. No issues.
Okay,
I continue.
okay.
Okay. So this is the definition on green building. So we have a sustainable development concept, and then we have a green building concept. Within that, the entire gamut of activities are there. So with this concept, I said, okay, let me share what we are looking for in the green building area. It's conceptually green building. When you look at it, it is talking about sustainable site planning, building design, energy, renewable energy utilization, wastewater and water, solid waste, sustainable building health. So these are some of the concepts, and it is using the nature and the air circulation, the sunlight and other things to ensure that we have minimum use of energy going down, and we are able to use more and more of nature. So that is how it is there. And the technology which is being proposed is it is improving every year. Every 2 years you find new technology being available in the refrigeration industry, new technology available in the lighting industry, new technology available in the building industry. So what we are looking for is based on that, how do we ensure that the natural resources which is available, because we found the cut, we found the pressure, the nature is impacting on us. So we started re-looking on the whole concept of the green building to ensure that we are able to create say, um, the future in a much better way. One of the things which I have found in this green building and other concept which is floating around is we are talking about rooftop cooling. Earlier, I remember that rooftop cooling was really difficult. I saw, except the grapevine used to be there, or one of the vines of some vegetable could be beans or anybody that would be on the terrace, on the I would say the tiled roof. So that is how we called it rooftop kind of the vegetation or plantation. Today we are looking at the building to create proper insulation, to create proper kind of water seepage chemicals are added to ensure that water which we water the plants doesn't get destroyed. And then we are using the sun. We are using the photovoltaic. So what we are doing is we are using every bit of the building. We are creating rainwater utilization for the building in Bangalore. I'm aware of, which belongs to a friend. He doesn't use water 365 days from the municipal supply. He has designed it in such a way. So are we able to do those kind of things in our community kind of a thing? Where apartments are there, what is the required thing? So I think these are areas which we need to look at it. So these are concepts. So we need to have a look at it, and they are built on. And this is from one of the assignments which from website and you are is that we are using the seasons, the climate, the sun movement, everything together to ensure the design is impacted by. For instance, in summer, which is 17th October to 26th is actually gone. So, and then it is talking about which is this is a European model, which is very short. So what I'm looking for is this entire air circulation, sun, everything put together. We are looking for air circulation, light, ventilation, and other things are very, very important. What I found is these are parameters and goals. I'll go a little fast. And these are the sustainable designs, and we have seen in the earlier sheets. And this is where I think we have been talking about. This is the first building which came about as a green building, a great building. And this was inaugurated and that is how the entire green building culture came into. So I think find out what are the loopings and what are the terms. And we are saying about eco-friendly structures. So going away from nature and now back into the kind of getting into building construction concepts, what we are finding is there are parameters which have been defined. There are, is it okay? Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry for that. So what we are looking for is how do we design and construct eco-friendly buildings, and we call them green buildings and other areas. And we are using, earlier we used looking at now our materials are procured across the globe. So these are some of the examples. I think the PPT will be shared, and I wanted to, and it is talking about rotation, which is very, very clear that we want to follow the high contribution. Then the orientation, spacing, not facing, what are the facing that you're looking for. Then how much daylight can you capture? This is again a way of passive kind of use of light, so we are able to minimize the use of artificial lighting and use the natural lighting as much as possible. So direct sunlight or indirect, which is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Audibility issue? How is it now? Hello? Oh, saying that still voice is not clear. Is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So what we are looking for is, these are some of the parameters which is being used in green building, and typically these are areas which needs more of kind of an understanding of the local area, and then we can start about design. For instance, if you are expert in designing, say, the desert, and you may not be able to do a similar thing in the various regions, say Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand or let us say Jammu and Kashmir. So what we are looking for is your expertise is related not to the technique, but to the understanding of the local resources, local conditions, climatic conditions, and what is prevalent weather. So I think these are very, very simple things which we need to understand and treat. But many times I have said there was a case study. I would like to share a story. A person from central part of India came to Mumbai, and they wanted to replicate a convention center in that area. What was the reason? Just because person was capable to do a design and had the land. So it is not that you have a one particular resource and you need to replicate or copy paste these kind of technologies, but need to do whether we need a glass cladding building, whether we need so many, I would say, floors which is required for survival. So I think what we are looking for is its location, orientation. A very interesting and challenging question. How do woolen carpets? We'll come back to that because we are talking about Bhadohi. We'll come back to that. And then we are basing on renewable energy, rainwater harvesting, and then we are talking about wastewater management. I think basically it is resource utilization, nature-based resources. What we are looking for is to reuse and optimize and capitalize that kind of an. I think these are some of the things which we are talking in part of green building, in terms of the design part of it. And what the question is more about the interior. So we'll deal with that little later, and we can take that question. So what we are looking for is sun, water, and wastewater. I think these are very, very basis of things which is there in the nature, and we need to utilize that as one of the resources. There will be a disturbance. I'm so sorry. So these are some basic concepts and what green buildings actually in the bottom line what they're coming and saying is. So these are based on collective design, analysis, research works, wherein what it has done is energy consumption has been reduced by 25 to 30%. Then CO2 emissions to 37% and water use to 40% and soil use to 70%. But these are only the green buildings which we are talking about. These are some of the, I would say, the selling points or kind of making aware the population and the industry that these are the possible benefits. Reason being, the initial cost of green buildings is relatively high compared to others, conventions. So these studies are very, very important for us to kind of track, modulate, and implement them in our projects. So how do we do that? It is through measuring, assessment, accreditation. I think that is what really it is talking about. And there are metrics of sustainability and building design efficiency. So that is what I would come to in green buildings. One of the things which I found is the rating system, the assessment system, the accreditation and measurements. And it all depends on what rating systems are you adopting. It is like, am I using a Maruti or am I using a Rolls Royce or am I using a kind of a Bugatti? You know, it all depends on what technology am I using. So looking at the basic things is there are some basic 5 parameters or 5, 7 and some use 9. So collectively the research indicates that if these parameters have been met, earlier when we constructed our houses or when we constructed the building, we never went into the measurement of okay, how much energy, except we look at the electricity bill and look at it, say, okay, last month it was 2000, why is it 5000 this month? Or if we are looking at the gas meter, the domestic gas, we look at that as a measure. But collectively, we have never tried to review it. Even in the property tax, we look at the water supply bills and we raise an issue. But within the house, what are the areas? So, from the world level sustainable development, from the local area, and then coming to a design of a house, and then coming to individual behavior and modulations. I think this is where the major shift takes place. The scale of development, the use of development, the technology, the techniques, the methods. I think this is where my basic understanding, which I always have, instead of focusing on only the techniques, is understand the principles. So that becomes so what we need to do is how do we ensure that we are able to take care of the entire industry in total, right from an individual level, the community level, and to a larger city level, and to a region level. I think that is where the entire trend is happening. And what we're talking about the nature-based solution, the U&2 network, or what we're calling the resilient cities. So all this will be gathered and collected together to say that this is what we want. So, what I shared is it's an evaluation and rating technique. It measures environmental performance of a building through the website. And there are methods, if you look at GRIHA, follows a different method. But if you look at IGBC, it follows a different method. GREEN follows a different method. But the basic principles is you will find more or less the same. That is, it is an evaluation for environmental performance. And in environmental performance, whether it is focusing on energy, whether it is focusing on wastewater, whether it is focusing on solid waste which is being generated, or it is looking at the green portion of a particular area. So we need to look at what it is. It's largely, what we have seen is largely everybody says that it is not part of a mandatory activity, but voluntary activity in raising awareness and authorizing the green. And this is where I think if some of you who are architects, engineers, and planners, and people who are involved in the building industry would realize that these parameters are very, very important. And this is where we look at it. And typically, in a planning assignment or in a development assignment, these parameters are very important. And the question one of the person which raised is about the indoor air quality and the indoor activity. So this is also being monitored and is part of the rating system. So we are looking at how do we take it forward. And then the innovations. Somebody comes about and innovates rainwater harvesting in what was done in Cyclone building probably may not have been done in any other building. So we need to look at how we are looking. We innovations which we are looking for. It could be as small as, just changing the loop. We are looking at those items as innovation. Or the construction material itself. Somebody may use a debris material, buy it from the market, reprocess it and do it. And there are people who are looking at it. And there are houses in, say, Bangalore, where house is being built purely from waste collected from the market, right from the furniture, right from the frames, the windows, the toiletries, the flooring, the roofs, everything. And this is a long list, like what we did in sustainable development. I think what we are looking for is these are there, and this is never ending. And each kind of a system is different. And I will be sharing one very good article. Maybe one of you was part the author. It does a comparative analysis of the Indian systems, whatever is prevalent on behalf of DBC and others. So what we are looking for is it's a very, very good technical scientific analysis. It takes up all the parameters of the green buildings which we shared earlier, and it talks about that what has been the comparative points and what is the evaluation. The bottom line which we found out, though they may follow various techniques, they may follow various methodologies for maybe different matrices, but the bottom line is if somebody was an 89, the other was 85, or the other one was somewhere closer to 90. So bottom line is a green building, which is platinum or 5-star or whatever it is. It's like a brilliance of a child in the school. If it's a brilliance and a gold medalist, be irrespective of the school where he is, he or she, when I say school, college, or university, the gold medalist remains as the gold medalist. And that is what exactly this rating process analysis and the research has proved. So I thought, okay, let us be very clear that what technique I should follow. Many times people say, should I follow this or that? I have seen experts, including my own office. Hello.
बोला यहाँ बैठिए आप अच्छा हाँ
दर्पण जी आप
What we are looking for is,
ये करिए
bottom line
म्यूट
is,
करिए
all of us are following certain measures to improve the performance, reduce the environmental. If these two parameters are very, very clear, I think any technique you follow, depending on what your business model is, like the colleague of mine follows a business model, all models are used, and depending on what the client's requirements are, we start working out. I will share that also with you. That if you want to do business in green models, green buildings, what is that you should be actually looking?
तो आपको बोलेंगे
So,
Sir, can you be a little more louder, sir? Because there is lots of echo and background noise. I
okay,
do
from
not
my
know
side.
whose background noise, whose background. We are muting everyone except Darpanji, mute everyone except me and sir. Because lots of background noise is coming.
I could also hear a lot of family talk happening. I said, let me continue. So typically the rating system in India is lead with the USGCB, and the other one is IGPC, and the other one is Green. So all of them, in principle, what I am looking for is run by different authorities, own method, prerequisites of rating. But what in comparative studies, when I realized is everybody is only talking about performance and environment, only these two things. But the performance levels in terms of 5-star or 89% or 100, it all depends on how we evaluate it, depending on the business model, depending on the design, depending on where we are located. I think that is exactly what we need to be very, very clear. Instead of getting bogged down to the pedantics of the rating or getting into the mathematics of that and say either 4.3 or 4.9. So let's not get into that. But understand that these are rating systems meant to evaluate the performance, get the incentives, maybe in terms of FSI or what we call as FAR, or maybe in terms of technology or property tax exemption, because throughout India you have different models in different states. So it all depends on what is that we are looking for. So how do we incentivize, I think, green building into a regular kind of a construction industry? I think that is what it becomes more and more clear. And this is, we had shared earlier, it was the Hyderabad building which came about. And then we are the parameters and how USA did. This is a larger story of what the evolution of green buildings are about. And this is the critical slide. And back to my sustainable development goals, is that initially people felt that it is only sustainable cities and communities, that is goal number 11, where green buildings are the fabric of sustainable communities and cities. But when we started looking at the integration part of it, we found that there are 9 sustainable development goals, which will become more and more important if you want to go for international rating, or if you're looking for international, I would say, auditing and due diligence of our projects, or if you're looking for international finance, which will be also regulated through the banking system. Henceforth, these 9 parameters also, or maybe if there are newer ones coming, it may be there, but all of them become very, very important in the construction industry to follow. Today, if we are doing, say, due diligence of a building, we are following the IFC, International Finance Corporation model, where we ensure that the parameters are met in terms of the social, environmental due diligence. But these are goals which will become more and important. This is very, very important and clear. What I'm looking for is